Hey everybody, it's Kristin again from Magoosh, and today on this episode of Tuesday CT we are going to talk once again about the new ACT essay, but we have some general videos giving you some overall tips and basic tips for the new ACT essay, and those links for those videos are below this one, so if you need some basic introduction to the essay, go ahead and check those out first. But this video is for our advanced students, those who want to get an absolutely killer score on the ACT essay. So I have a couple tips for you to do that if you're shooting for the like the 32 to the 36 superstar range. And the first is less obvious examples. Now, on the first of the new ACT essays that premiered this September, a lot of students, I can't give you what the question was, but I can tell you that a lot of students wrote about the civil rights movement. At least that's what I hear from the internet. Now, technically the graders aren't supposed to be punishing you for writing about an example that a lot of other students might write about, but that was something that a lot of students had studied in school, they knew a lot about, it was the first thing that came to their minds, and honestly it was the first thing that came to my mind when I read the question. However, there's a couple things to consider if you're tempted to go with an example that you think a lot of other students are going to write about. And the first is, remember that your graders are human beings, and if a human being is reading 45 essays about the civil rights movement in a row, and they get to your essay and you are writing about something completely different, this obscure situation that happened in the 18th century, don't make it up, make sure it's real, but something that you studied in history class or that you remember, if you can think of a less obvious example like that, I would go with that one over something that's more obvious. It's going to make them pay attention, and also you have to keep in mind if they've already read 45 essays with examples from the civil rights movement, they have a lot fresh in their mind to be comparing your essay to, so if you can surprise them with something that is perhaps less obvious, that might work out in your favor, but of course you want to go with the best examples over an example that only kind of works but happens to be more obscure. And also on that point, don't be arrogant. Don't try to use big words or obscure examples just to impress them. Make sure that they're actually relevant and good examples for your essay. All right, the second piece of advice that I have, only if you're shooting for like the tippy top score on this essay, is to choose the third option to present your own perspective. So this is basically meaning, you can choose one of the perspectives to agree with or disagree with, or you can present your own. Now, this is dangerous territory here to present your own perspective, because you really do run the risk of just going completely off topic and not being able to tie what you're trying to say into the perspectives which you're supposed to analyze on this. So the best way that I think you can do this is by not just totally going off on this whole other idea that's not presented as one of the three perspectives, because remember, you can get a score by just choosing one of those three perspectives to agree with. What I would suggest, rather than going off on that whole other tangent, is to narrow the scope of the prompt. And what I mean by that, if you take a look at the sample essay number 5 on the ACT student website on intelligent machines, you'll see that the graders applaud that student for narrowing the scope of their answer to issues pertaining specifically to capitalism and consumer culture. So we have this big idea about intelligent machines and whether or not they're good or bad in our world, and this student focused just a little bit more narrowly on its implications in a capitalistic society. And so that can kind of help you to sort of narrow your scope to pick a particular angle on the issue so that you're not talking about all of life in a 5-paragraph essay. So that's one way to give a little bit of a unique, personalized twist without totally going overboard or off the diving board or whatever, and going off on a totally different track, because that's basically what I'm trying to say there. So, 2 things if you're looking for a super top score on the ACT essay. Try to think of less obvious examples if you can, and give it a little personalized twist, and you'll hopefully really impress those graders. And the new ACT essay is really tough, so make sure you're doing lots of time practice. And if you want some essay questions to practice with, you can find them on act.magoosh.com.